What's going on, everybody? It's Aaron Duncan here at the Necessary Bluntness Sports Talk. You already know what it is. I start off every video by saying, "What up, doe?" And today I'm back again with another Panthers video. And today was the first day of full pass practice at Panthers training camp. And they had Inside the Training Camp live from NFL Network. And I found an interesting clip while I was tuning in. They had Steve Smith on to talk about the Panthers. And you know he's got the inside plug on information with those guys. And I want to play you guys an audio clip or a video clip also of him just talking about the context of how long will it take for Matt Rhule to implement his system and his culture and to turn things around in Carolina. I thought it was pretty interesting. But before we get into it, make sure you guys give the video a thumbs up because I'm going to be bringing these videos all the time, man. And make sure you hit the subscribe button too so you don't miss any of them and you always get a notification about what's going on when you hit that bell icon. But without further ado, let's get into it.
I think it'll take about 3 years to get the culture perfect because the first year, which is right now, has been obviously dialed back significantly. So he's going to implement what he wants. He's had an extensive breakdown with the scouts, the training staff, the coaches as well, and they had to come in and figure out what is Matt Rhule's definition of a Carolina Panther. And that took a lot of dialogue and conversations and meetings in this organization for a long time heading into the combine and the draft. And then once they figured that out, they had a picture and a video to really emphasize what they believe is a Carolina Panther under the helm of Matt Rhule. And then after that, he needs to figure out which guys has he brought in. They lost 8 players last year, this offseason, and they've added through draft or free agent acquisitions 11. 8 of those are defensive players. So they have to figure out who works, who doesn't. Then the next year, figure out, okay, let's add on top of what we have. And then the third year, they hit that sweet spot. They know what they want. The players know how he wants them to practice. Under Coach Ron Rivera, it was a different practice philosophy because Matt Rhule and Ron Rivera are 2 different individuals, and they just have a different philosophy. So some of the things I'm hearing out there is Matt Rhule's expectation in practice and in games don't change. Perfection all the time, and that is a different change from what was there prior.
And as you hear that, Steve Smith broke it down pretty well about how this transition is going to go. Because like you said, in year one, they kind of had to purge everything. They have 8 new players coming in defensively that they brought in, and it's just a complete change of culture. Like I said, Matt Rhule has to define what he thinks the Carolina Panthers is, because as long as this franchise has been around, we've been known as a hard-nosed, tough, knock-em-out, slob-em defensive team that runs the ball and is hard-nosed and tough. And that has had a success under John Fox and Ron Rivera. But with this new culture coming in with David Tepper and Matt Rhule, we have to define what the new Carolina Panthers will be going forward. We finally have an offensive coach at the helm now, so there's going to be some changes to what we're used to. So year one was to define what a Carolina Panther was going to look like. Once they decide that and everybody's on the same page of what that is, like he said, year two, you figure out who do you have on your team. What do you have? Do these guys, all these guys that you brought in and picked up, are these guys going to fit in your system? And you wonder, and you see why Matt Rhule decided to bring in a bunch of guys from Temple or Baylor, because one, they're familiar with him. And so even though he's a college coach and he may not be as respected as some NFL vets, the guys that played under him, they definitely respect him, or the guys that he feels like respects him, whether it's Robbie Anderson or Tahir Whitehead, guys like that played with him in college, they respect him. So it makes the transition a little bit easier, and they can pick up what he's putting down a little bit more, and they're buying into what he wants to make the Carolina Panthers going forward. So you have to figure out what you got in those guys. After that, and like you said, going into year 3, the guys are used to what Matt Rhule wants to do. Everybody in the program knows what he wants to do, and then you move forward there. Now, how successful will that be when he's under there? Look, man, if you talk to me, it's going to be some grim years in this transition. You know, everybody has like 3-year mark for him because it took him 3 years to turn around Temple and took him 3 years to pretty much turn around Baylor. This is not college. You know what I'm saying? And these are grown men out here, and it's a grown man game for everybody. The NFC South in particular is very competitive, and year one, they're definitely going to take some lumps because, like Steve Smith said, with COVID-19, it pretty much set everything back. I talked about it in my previous video, how COVID-19 has affected a lot of these coaches, in particular these rookie head coaches, especially a staff like ours that has a bunch of new guys, whether it's Joe Brady, Matt Rhule, or Snow on defense, or trifecta of head coach and coordinators that are all brand new and have no NFL experience, there's definitely going to be some lumps. Like, don't think this is going to happen overnight, and that may be hard to stomach. It's kind of hard for me to stomach. I've lowered my expectations completely. So Matt Rhule's on a 7-year contract. He knows he has time. And when you make moves like bringing in Joe Brady, a young guy that's going to grow and develop, you signed Christian McCaffrey to a long-term deal. You secure Shaq Thompson early on in the offseason. And you bring in a guy like Teddy Bridgewater on a 2-year contract who's probably not going to be the guy for the future, but he's definitely a good bridge guy now that's familiar with Joe Brady. He's a very good coachable and a good teammate that he's not going to ruffle any feathers, and he's going to be a pretty steady business-like quarterback and run the system and do what he's coached. So it just has a recipe to me of just kind of keeping everything afloat as you go, and hopefully they're going to implement that system pretty good, and hopefully that system will be successful. Defensively, they're definitely going to struggle early on. I think it's going to be a tough transition. Let's just say it like that. We lost a lot of defensive players. We lost a lot of great players that retired. They got rid of some people. We always had struggles in our secondary, but it'll be interesting to see how this new system and the new energy and the new culture works on this field. You know what I'm saying? He sounds good in press conferences when it comes to Matt Rhule, but what happens when you get between those white lines and it's time to execute, it's time to play? You know, Steve Smith said it. It's a little bit different from Ron Rivera. Matt Rhule expects perfection. He's a perfectionist, which is nothing wrong with that. You know, Ron Rivera always got his guys to play hard for him, and it's not like he was just out there doing whatever. If you look up the numbers, under Ron Rivera, the Panthers were always one of the least penalized teams in the league. That comes from discipline, and that comes from working on it, and that comes from respect for your head coach and listening to what they say in practice when they're pushing you to be disciplined. We'll see if that kind of thing will be able to transition for Matt Rhule once he wants that perfection on both sides of the football. And it looks like everything's going to be a little bit more about tempo and up speed and being efficient and kind of going balls to the wall. That's that college mentality that you're bringing over that you saw from Baylor or from LSU with the guys that we have. Will they work in the pros? We'll see. We saw Chip Kelly try to come and bring that up tempo and the conditioning type stuff and fast pace of game style and practice style to the pros, and it worked for a little bit as a shock factor, but it didn't really work long term because after a while, once you're playing up tempo too fast, you can kind of hurt yourself. And if you're not putting plays together or if you're not getting any kind of rhythm with that up tempo, it can be kind of hard on your defense because your offense is not on the field a long time. But without getting too deep into philosophy, that's kind of where you need to think about. Like I said, Chip Kelly brought that up tempo. Is it going to work with Matt Rhule? They've been pushing the gas pedal to the metal and pushing perfection. So it's kind of hard to go fast and be perfect, but we'll see if Matt Rhule is able to marry those two things together and make this team successful. You know what I'm saying? We have some pieces there, but you don't want to throw away too many years because Christian McCaffrey is a running back. And even though he's one of the better running backs in the league, the shelf life of running backs, we know how that goes. So you don't want to waste 1, 2, 3, 4 years of the prime of the best running back in the league. You know what I'm saying? So you want to get that stuff together. So we'll see how that goes and see if we can build around the guys that we do have and who will be here going forward and how long this thing lasts and how it shapes up. I don't think there's a ton of hype around the season for the Panthers, but there's definitely a ton of excitement for the curiosity to see what we're going to look like. I don't think anybody really has unrealistic expectations of us going to the playoffs, or at least they shouldn't, in my opinion. But I think we're all just curious to see how this is going to go because Ron Rivera was in Carolina for 9 years. So now we get a taste of something new. Now we get an offensive coach. Now we have a brand new owner who's going to open the bag and pay money for pretty much anything that we need. We'll see what happens, man. So that's my take on it. You guys let me know down below in the comments, how long do you think it'll take Matt Rhule to turn around the program in Carolina and implement his system? It took him 3 years in college to do that. Like I said, the NFL is a big, different animal. So let me know down below in the comments what you think about that. But without further ado, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button on this. This is Aaron Duncan here with the Necessary Blunt and Sports Talk. I'll see you next time.